All right, hi everybody. We are really excited to finally be sharing back insights from our research on brand suitability with the ARF community. My name is Manatt, and I'm the SVP of Intelligence Solutions at Magna Global, and I'm here today with Rob Cukierman, who is the SVP of Strategy and Measurement at Zefr. We specifically decided to test out machine learning to explore brand suitability because with brand suitability, we need a lot of nuance, right? We need to be able to pick up on all the nuance, specifically if we're thinking about YouTube, all the nuance that exists on YouTube. And so we've actually done a lot of research on machine learning in the past, and there's one thing that's always been crystal clear to us with machine learning, and that is that the data really only is as good as the signals that we feed it. And so we talked to brands to figure out what they deem suitable for their brand. We used those signals to inform the machine. Machine learning was used to go out and find suitable videos for those brands at scale. And so that's essentially what we tested. Next, I'm going to pass it over to Rob to familiarize you guys with some key terms that are important for our discussion today.
Thanks, Kara. Yeah, there are a few key terms as it relates to the study that we wanted to make sure that everybody had an understanding of where we're coming from. Brand suitability, a term that's being used widely in the industry right now. For our purposes today, brand suitability really focuses on the alignment of a brand's individual content preferences, the types of content they want to be around with, aligned with, and what makes sense for their image and the points and the messages they're trying to get out. To that end, brand preferences, as we refer to them here, is the information a brand uses to define what is suitable for them. It's the signals that are provided that we can use to be able to say, hey, this is the type of content we want to be around. This is what we don't want to be around. This is what we should include. This is what we should exclude. And then for the study, human in the loop is the machine learning process that Kara spoke about just a minute ago. And what human in the loop is, it's a form of human-supervised machine learning. We're taking those brand signals, those brand preferences, we use humans to define those further for the machine learning algorithm, which then goes out and finds videos that are the same as what those preferences outlined. And then we continue to refine and use that to identify the videos for a targeting set on these big platforms.
Great, thanks, Rob. So next, we want to talk a little bit about the methodology and how we conducted the research before we get to the results. We used what I would consider the most rigorous form of testing, which of course is experimental design. We recruited specifically YouTube users because we were doing all of our testing on YouTube from a nationally representative online panel, and we drove them to a version of YouTube that we could control, because we wanted to be able to serve the appropriate ads and be able to randomize them into test and control groups. And so we allowed our YouTube users to go out and explore YouTube as they typically would, watch videos, and of course we served the ads that appeared within those videos, but again, they're kind of watching whatever they're interested in watching. And the control group got a public service announcement because we needed to see how people felt about the brand who watched the same type of content, but did not get any branding. And then we also, of course, had a test group who got an ad for the brand that we were measuring. After the experience, we sent everybody a survey to measure the effectiveness of the ads across traditional branding metrics. As far as the types of targeting that we tested, we of course had human in the loop, which was our brand signal fueled machine learning for brand suitability. That's a mouthful. And we compared it to more traditional forms of targeting that we're all used to on YouTube: demo, channel, and keyword-based targeting. Now, we also use the machine learning to go out and find both high and low quality content to explore the impact of content quality. So we'll review those results as well. Next, we're going to talk about what happens when brands align with suitable content, and really the worst case, which unfortunately happens a lot, and that is when there is a misalignment between the content and the ad. But first, I do want to share some feedback that we got from consumers. We asked consumers what they really expect out of video ads on YouTube, and we found really all the usual suspects. All right, we've all seen research about what consumers want out of ads, and we got some of the same results as far as, telling an interesting story, being informative. But what really stood out most on YouTube is that people really want ads that are entertaining. However, when we looked at the success of advertisers at achieving these expectations, we asked people how successful we are and what their typical ad experience is actually like. We found that the biggest room for improvement for us as an industry is on relevance. Next, we're going to look at the results. So what did we actually find from these different forms of targeting? Well, we actually found a big difference in whether or not people found the ad relevant to them, which I think is really interesting because all of the ads that we tested are the same across the different targeting techniques. These are the same pieces of creative perceived very differently based on the way the ad is targeted. So what we found, of course, is that the ad targeted through human in the loop was really perceived as most relevant. And this makes a lot of sense if you think about how the targeting was done, right? We went and talked to each individual brand. We figured out what was most suitable for their unique brand, and that's the type of content that the ads ran in front of. You'll also notice that we actually found that keywords didn't perform as well as some of the other targeting techniques, which really, really surprised me. One of my biggest surprises in the test. And I want to show a little bit of why. We dug a little bit deeper into this. We looked at what some of the brands would be targeting and looked at exactly what you would get with keyword targeting. So on the left-hand side here, you can see an ad for Miracle-Gro. And obviously Miracle-Gro could potentially target lots of different keywords, including DIY. On the right-hand side, you can see the options of videos that could potentially appear under DIY. On the bottom left-hand side, you have the bottom right-hand side, you have really the ideal scenario, something that is perfect for Miracle-Gro, which is how to grow an herb garden at home. That's great. That's a perfect match for Miracle-Gro. But if you look at the top right-hand side, this is a video that was actually a trending video at the time and also fell under DIY, but has nothing to do with Miracle-Gro and is not relevant to that or the consumer for Miracle-Gro at all, which is how to build or how to make your own Halloween costume. So again, same keyword, but very different result with respect to the environment that you would land in. And so next, we want to talk a little bit about what happens when the ad is not aligned with the content. So here we're looking at consumer responses and consumer ratings on whether the ad is aligned with the content or not. The purple bar means the ad is aligned with the content. The gray bar is not aligned. And so this is what people think about the brand as a result of the advertising. Very big difference, right? So when you are aligned, you have the potential to positively impact brand perceptions, and the ad is really working hardest. When it's not aligned with the content and there's really no relevance or suitability between the two, the ad performs very differently. At worst, you're missing, or at best, you're missing out on the potential impact that you could get from alignment. And at worst, you're actually potentially hurting perceptions of the brand. And then finally, for this section, we also want to look at the real impact that you could actually get on traditional branding metrics from this form of targeting or the various types of alignment that you could potentially do on YouTube. Next, we're going to talk a little bit about quality of content. And this is something that Rob's going to walk us through, but I'll say that it was my favorite part of the study because we were actually wrong about quite a bit. We had some hypotheses that proved wrong, and it was a lot of fun to try to figure out what the truth really was. So I'll pass it off to Rob for this section.
One of the important things in video, obviously, is the type of video that we run around. And many advertisers are very cognizant of video quality. Premium video is an important thing that people look for as a buyer, and it's something that we need to understand the implications of on these large platforms, because there's all different types of content that's available for advertisers and brands. So we started off by working with our human in the loop algorithm to be able to identify what would be traditionally considered high quality content. And the machine learning did its job. A vast majority of those who watched videos that were identified as high quality rated them as high quality. And as we expected, that content performed both for lower funnel metrics like purchase intent, which we just looked at prior, as well as for brand attributes, which is important as far as alignment goes. But that wasn't the end of the story. What we expected was to see that the low quality content performed poorly. Well, what we learned was far more nuanced. Looking at a distribution of those scores, these are respondents who identified the content that they watched prior to any ad exposure as quality or not quality. And what we expected to see was a valley sort of here. And what you see is not that. The green identifies all the respondents and that identification of quality content, while the red is the identification of the non-quality content. And what you can see is that that distribution is across the entire scale instead of going back up into the right on the lower end of the scale. So that became very curious to us. And so we wanted to dig in and say, hey, why is that? You know, is it true that quality is really in the eye of the beholder? And that's what we ultimately found out. So while, you know, over 94% of people who watched what was identified as quality content agreed that it was quality content, 55%, over half of those that watched low quality content, identified as low quality content, weren't quite sure. 55% of them thought it was high quality, while the rest thought it was low quality. And so that opens up a whole number of questions. One of the things we did was try to identify if there were any attributes around this content that may give us a hint as what was driving that. And we did see some interesting things. So for the identified as low quality content, but perceived as high quality content, the respondents felt that it was enjoyable or interesting or something they would want to watch again or share. While attributes like informative or useful were not what we saw pop for those that thought that the low quality content, the traditionally considered low quality content, was perceived as high quality content. So that's a mouthful. I know that can be a little confusing. So what we want to do is show you an example of exactly what we're talking about.
This is top class, top shelf weird. Like, it looks like a serious product, like that instrument thing the other day with the Japanese writing. This one positions itself kind of as a real product, but immediately you look at it and you're like, what exactly is going on there?
Okay, so let's dig into what's going on here. In the first box, what you see is content that was identified as high quality by the machine learning and also identified as high quality by our respondents. So this was both agreed that it was high quality. Now in the second box, what you see is where this started to diverge. So this was a piece of content where the machine learning algorithm identified it as low quality, but our respondents overwhelmingly identified it as high quality. And then in the final box, what you see is both the respondents and the machine learning identifying this piece of content as low quality. And what's most important about this, the main takeaway from all of this, is that perception of quality is what drives performance more than quality itself. So what we saw here is that within the cells of low quality content, those who perceived it as high quality still overperformed across these same sort of attributes, lower funnel purchase intent and brand attributes. And so that was the real important learning for us, that while quality is in the eye of the beholder, the perception of quality is what drives proper alignment and effectiveness in these types of environments.
Great, thank you, Rob. So to sum it up, we know that in order to meet consumer expectations and also be more effective with our advertising, the industry really needs to continue to listen to consumers and work harder to build solutions that deliver on relevance. And we believe that machine learning is a big step in the right direction. Secondly, we know that relevance requires a lot of nuance, and I think making sure that we are building solutions that take brand input into consideration is really key. And then finally, we do have the opportunity to rethink what we consider high and low quality content, knowing that, again, quality really is in the eye of the beholder. And if we can do this, we actually might have some new opportunities, particularly higher reach campaigns. And so thank you guys so much for joining this afternoon, and we look forward to answering any questions you have.